you getting like weird feedback or anything, or like?
No, oh my gosh, that's so good. You're like, wait, I gotta fix dad's hair.
Yeah, that's his
No,
job.
I don't hear any feedback. And I see, is this like your office instrument room?
This is we have actually two studios in the house, and this is my studio. I'm in the lower basement, and then he's in the attic. It's like a studio sandwich.
Yeah.
That's so funny. So you have your own studio in case that you guys like need a break from each other.
Right, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining my Mod Rock Jam podcast. And I know that you're currently on a small tour, right?
Yeah, it's a small little thing. We did our first out of town show on what was that, Sunday, just down in San Diego, and then we did a show on Monday in LA. And so that's we've played some shows around the Bay Area. So we played, I think, about, I don't know, 4 or 5 shows maybe total.
Mhm.
And then those two were the first time that we've gotten out of town, and then we have one more tomorrow here in SF, kind of like a record release, and then next week we have one more show in the Bay Area, and then we're kind of taking a break until the summertime when he has more time off.
Yeah, I remember those, brutal school schedules. This was a few years ago, but I went to a school because when I went to college, we didn't have like bells. And I went to the school and I heard the lunch bell and it scared me like, oh my gosh, what is this? Skye, is this your first time officially touring?
Pretty much. Yeah.
How has it been?
It was like I expected it to be a lot worse. I expected the drive to be a lot more, I don't know, just like it wasn't as bad as I thought, to be honest. And the shows were really fun. It's really different playing like uh I don't know, just playing out of town where people really like love to come to see you instead of like dragging your friends.
Yeah, see, he already knows what it's like. uh yeah, exactly. I think I would totally agree with that. I mean, it was so fun to get out of town and play to some people that don't know you, and just are experiencing your music for what it is.
And also, I'm sure you realize, oh, wait, we don't have our own roadies. We have to be our own roadies. We have to carry our own equipment. We have to like set up our own gear and stuff like that. So yeah, taking it back to the roots of all.
Yeah, and luckily he has a young back where I'm like, after these shows, I'm always like, oh my god, I just popped a couple Advil actually because my back's killing me.
Right? You're like, you could take a few more instruments and amps here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What are some of your favorite Bay Area venues to play? Because I have like a huge list.
I think for us, like having a club that's not too big at this point, that is big enough, but also in our case, actually, because Skye's 14, it sure is nice to have a place where he can hang out and not have to leave. And a lot of the 21 only clubs, with like, if they don't serve food, for instance, and if they don't have separate rooms and all this stuff, then he has to basically leave. Like, he can't be there before we play and he can't be there after we play. So that makes for kind of a rough night, because not only is he kind of just hanging out outside or doing whatever, but like, I think, I don't know, like, just it's just not fun for him, right? I mean, it's just not cool. And then a place like, we found, like, there's this place, Amado's in San Francisco, where he can just kind of hang out, and they have a restaurant and stuff. So it's just like, same with Chapel. Honestly, it's the same feeling, where it's just it just makes it a lot more fun for us and easy when I don't have to worry about the age restrictions, obviously.
Yeah. And you have bragging rights, like, hey, guess what? I played at a bar.
Like, the experience that you have as a band when you show up at the club, when you're dealing with the people putting on the show, and the sound guy, and the bartender or whatever. If they're in like really rotten moods, then it makes for a much weirder, kind of bizarre experience. I don't know. Like, I've played so many times, thousands of times probably in my life, and and all over the world, all over Europe and stuff. And I remember the good shows. Like those are the ones where you leave with this kind of warm and fuzzy feeling. Like those are the shows that, I don't know, like that you remember, that you like end up having all these positive experiences around, meet people, you stay in touch, you form a network, a community, all that stuff. I don't know, it all helps you kind of I don't know, it's like we're all helping each other, right? We're all like,
You're all elevating, right?
yeah, and that's what it takes. I mean, like that's the kind of stuff that makes it not only fun and feel like you're doing something that's worthwhile, but that's kind of
Yeah.
what it takes to actually, I feel like that's what it kind of takes to kind of rise up. I mean, you can't do it when everyone's hating each other and kind of not wanting to be there, right?
And it
And
seems like the Bay Area is doing a good job now supporting the local music bands, like kind of like lifting one another up. Now, you mentioned about how this is not uh it's very familiar to you. It's no stranger to you whatsoever because of your previous band, Film School. Now you're gonna be doing double duty
yeah,
tomorrow at the chapel, playing obviously with Nyte, Skye, and with Film School. And Ben Gibbard of Def Cab and his other band, Postal Service, he's doing double duty as well when he goes on tour. But how do you mentally prepare and physically prepare when you have to do two roles?
I don't know. It's pretty I was just sitting down like literally like 15 minutes ago, starting to get my head around the fact that like, okay, I'm playing a different guitar when I play with Film School than I've been playing for the last week. And I need to like actually write down, because I have all these different settings on my effects pedals and stuff for the different guitar, right? And so I have to like go through and make sure like, okay, after I play with Night Sky and I've got one set of settings on my 15 pedals, I need to like go through every single one of them and reset them for another different guitar that I play with Film School. And I play kind of a different style in that band as well. So yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've actually really had to do this on any real level. I mean, I've played, in multiple, like at kind of what was it? Oh, like with there's like a local thing here called Porch Fest, and like we put on I kind of spearheaded like a stage, and so it was Night Sky, um and then we played with my friend Zach Rogue of Rogue Wave. We did some songs with him, and I played with somebody else that day too. And then Skye, of course, played with like 3 other bands that day as well. So we're used to it. I mean, that's part of just, I think, being in a community of musicians. You can jump around like that. But yeah, tomorrow night's going to be kind of interesting because I haven't done that yet with, I guess, 2 bands where you're on, the kind of bigger stage, and, it's a little bit more at stake, I guess. So yeah, I've got to write it all down and be at my, be at my best, I think. Maybe I'll have some more coffee like that afternoon than usual.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest the chapel has really a good cocktail drinks, but I think you
Ooh.
need to have the absolute focus you need for that night. And Porch Fest is really fun. We do that in the Central Valley. We really haven't because of like the post pandemic, but hopefully it does come back. But then what houses to go to because some houses have really good snacks and drinks. And yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah, you get it. Yep.
Skye, I'm just curious because obviously your dad is a musician with his previous band, but what got you into music personally?
uh, like just being around it, I guess. Like I don't know. He really wanted me to like get into an instrument for like a few years, and then I just completely rejected it. So he stopped trying, and then like 2 years later, I just found it on my own. So yeah.
But you know what? I'm sorry, but it's just funny how you describe it, because from my point of view, like I always felt like he's into music from the get-go. Like even as a, you know, toddler, I could kind of tell that he liked music. So it's just funny that he thinks he has this, I don't know, history that he thinks he wasn't into music. Because I mean, I have a recording of him playing synthesizer when he was 6, because you got really into piano. Out of nowhere, he decided he wanted to play the piano, and he got pretty darn good as a 7-year-old. But when he was 6, even before that, he was already able to like sit down in front of an instrument and be present, you know, and just be like, oh, this is, you know, making a sound here that I like, and I'm listening to what my dad is doing on his guitar, and I'm in the room here with him. You know what I mean? Like listening to what's happening around him, and playing an instrument, communicating. So I knew from such an early age that he had it, you know. It was just a matter of, I don't know, just getting out of the way, honestly, because as soon as he found drums, I mean, I haven't done anything. I've just been along for the ride. He's just getting better and better. And sure, yeah, I mean, we jam, and I've given him plenty of, like, I don't know, opportunities along the way to be a part of what I've been doing. Like he's filled in for my drummer in my solo band. He's been on so many recordings. So I mean, it just kind of unfolded. And then when the pandemic kicked in, we obviously found ourselves with all this time, and he was home from school, and you know, remote learning being what it was kind of a drag. And my work kind of slowed down. So I mean, we had all this time. We also had a kind of, like, going into that, we had a good amount of jams and stuff and ideas kind of lying around from the last few years. So we went into the pandemic just like, you know, let's record, let's actually do something here. We have all this time. And it just, like, it was just, I don't know, it was like the perfect storm, if you will, because we had plenty of ideas, and he was already so confident in the studio, and you know, recording was easy peasy. And he's technically, you know, really also able to produce and collaborate on that level too. So like, he'd be up in his attic, you know, working on the song on his computer, and I'd be down here, you know, working. And it just was like, you know, just all these ideas and a lot of energy. And it just came together so fast. And it was interesting too, because it kind of quickly, I think, became our thing, where there was some sort of sound here that developed. And that was a little bit of a process, because at first, you know, we kind of like, oh yeah, you know, we've got this demo, we've got this, I don't know, this idea that we can kind of turn into a pop song or something. But I think as we evolved into into what the sound of the band was becoming, it really became more about what he was doing on the drums. And so I would record him just playing for a while, and we would jam, but we'd also just just record, like, kind of what we were jamming, and incorporating that into the songs, right? So the songs have this kind of looser, kind of groove oriented vibe. That was kind of later. That's kind of like, I don't know. When I hear the record, there's I don't know, 3 or 4 songs that have this kind of more groove oriented approach. And I kind of feel like that was the sound that we started to really gel into. Like, that was this cool thing that was a little different. And I feel like that's when we found our sound, really.
And then I just want to say congratulations on dropping your debut, Vanishing. And like, again, you formed this project during the pandemic. Yeah, you mentioned how your rehearsals were like no big deal. You have your own home studio. How is it like getting into performance mode when for nearly 2 years we didn't have live music, and now you're booking local shows?
It was a really huge shift, I think, at first. It felt totally crazy. It felt I don't know. I mean, it was wild. Our first show just felt like, oh my God, I haven't done this in so long. I felt like I was starting over as a musician myself. I just felt like I had almost lost my ability to swim or something. It was so weird, and I was strangely, like, really nervous and stuff. And I still feel like I'm kind of getting back into the groove of it, honestly, like, as a performer. Even like this last weekend, you know, with having to find the bass player the night before, we found ourselves in San Diego, you know, just kind of unrehearsed and just not really ready to play. But it was really a trial by fire. And I feel like I kind of had a moment of being like, okay, like, you know, that was a test, and we totally I don't know, we passed, we did well. It was actually a great show. I mean, we played probably better that night than at other shows. I mean, just because I think we were just, I don't know, just super dialed in and really listening to each other. And then of course, like having the feedback from the crowd, like I was saying before, it's just a great crowd. So um yeah, I mean, I feel like getting back into it after having such a long break is like it's almost like starting over and learning again. Yeah, it's starting to, I think, kick into gear a little bit.
Well, I'm definitely became a new fan listening to the debut album, and I do want to talk about one song. It was your last track, "Two Wolves in the Heart," which
Hmm.
references the Native American tale. Is there something about cultural storytelling that plays into writing your music and that influence?
That is that's a great question. I mean, that I don't usually write songs like that. I kind of stumbled into that whole thing, honestly. Like I had that lyric in my head for some reason, "Two wolves in the heart." I don't even know where that came from. And then I looked it up and I'm like, "Oh wait, this is a poem that has this there's this whole thing here. There's a whole like fable or whatever. There's this whole I don't know, deep story that's been passed on from generation to generation. This is like something I'm like just kind of tapping into almost by accident." Um, and I just kind of I don't usually write that way. I mean, I typically when I'm writing lyrics, I'm usually going through something really hard emotionally, and the lyrics will just kind of spill out, which is most of the record, honestly, because it's all related to the pandemic. It's all like what we were feeling. So most of the songs are just me kind of, you know, blah, like everything's scary or everything's falling apart or whatever it is. But it's all touching on those emotions of the anxiety and the insecurity of early on before we had a vaccine and all this stuff. So there's a lot. It was easy to write lyrics, to be honest, because it was just a matter of writing down what was in my head, right? I mean, making it work to the music. So but the two wolves in the heart was different, right? Because I kind of had that chorus already established, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. I mean, it was kind of handed to me, right, from above or whatever. um and it kind of wrote itself in that way. And the way I kind of used it on the album was almost to like envision, it's a little bit different because it doesn't have much to do with the pandemic. It's more about climate change and the extremes that we feel like I think that I feel, at least, when kind of feel helpless and powerless sometimes to do anything about what's happening. And uh you can lash out, maybe, or consider lashing out, or consider joining like a group of protesters, for instance, that might do something to really make a statement that might, be violent, let's say, or really try to make a statement by doing something crazy. And that desperation, I feel it sometimes, right? I mean, the earth, what's happening, like, how do we turn this thing around? Why is no one paying attention? Why are we still have climate deniers? Like, well, what's happening? Well, we're gonna like, are we incapable of solving this problem? Like, we need to wake the hell up, right? And so I don't know, sometimes I've had that consideration, especially when I was younger, before I had a family and stuff. Like, maybe I don't know. Maybe I want to make more of a statement here and put myself out there a little bit more, whether that be, getting arrested for protesting, or like just doing something maybe a little crazier, like trespassing on some chemical plant and, doing something really stupid. But that's kind of what the song's about. It's about, um, two wolves of the heart, and there's two wolves that are kind of competing, and one is coming from a place of love, and the other is kind of coming from a place of envy
Hate.
and
Yeah.
hate and anger. And
And
how
it
do you
depends on who you feed
right?
is the one that consumes the most. When I listen to Night Sky, obviously there's shoegaziness and it's very spacey, and I feel like it takes me to a whole spiritual level of escapism. So I'm curious, for both of you, what is your personal escape? Where could that be at?
I certainly can escape into music, but it's just has this other side to it as well. So sometimes I actually have to take a break from music. Like I have to just step away from all of it. And so if I kind of put that one aside, I think I don't know. I mean, we live in a pretty an area that has a lot of outside places to hike and to be outside. And I find that that's a really important thing for me, to just be able to be outside and not and just let the elements of my environment just kind of seep back into me a little bit, and just listen to the surrounding animals or whatever it is, the wind. I mean, it's so replenishing. I find that's just huge. And like that was big for me also during the last few years, just being able to walk outside and try to let the world just kind of fade away. um that's a big way that I escape. I mean,
What
what about
about you, Skye?
I don't know. Yeah, I like getting outside. I like escaping into music.
yeah, he's still got that. He's still, yeah,
Yeah.
he'll practice literally his drums like all day. He'll be up there banging his drums like all day. I've heard him practice all day before. That's pretty amazing.
I mean, Skye's so young, 14, already an impressive drummer, and I know that both of you are influenced by the Police, as you could tell. I have a Police poster.
Yeah.
But I know, Skye, that drummer Stewart Copeland is one of your influences. Why is that? What about his drumming style that speaks to you?
Um. Well, like we pretty much always listen to the Police. Like, I don't know. He's always been like, well, he's obviously in a band that I really like, and I just really liked his style. And he has all these ways of like incorporating like uh rhythms from like other countries. He goes on these trips, and then he'll like reference the music that he heard when he went to those other countries in the Police records, which I thought was really interesting.
Have you seen Sting or the Police Niles?
I
Live?
haven't. I wish I it's funny because I Sting kind of drives me nuts. Like he's such a whenever I hear him talk or like do his own thing, I'm always like, oh, he's just ugh, I don't know. But at the Police, I love those early records. I really do, and I think it's because I kind of grew up with them and stuff. So there's a certain degree of nostalgia. But those first, I don't know, 3 Police albums, especially Zenyatta Madada, that album is so amazing, and I love everything about it. I love that it's a trio on the one hand, so it's very minimalist. I love but yeah, Stewart Copeland's drumming has this like reggae influence that is just awesome. Because he's a lot of bands at that time were down there kind of picking up the Jamaican sounds and stuff, and incorporating that, and there was that was kind of a part of pop music at the time. But I don't know. I mean, that like awesome kind of I don't know, the clash going on between punk on the one hand and dub on the other, and this crazy kind of cross current thing. He was so, I don't know, he was so good at mixing those 2 elements. I just love it. I love everything that he did on that album. And so I think we have a few moments on this album on Vanishing where we really kind of like, I mean, if you're a Stewart Copeland fan, I think you'll be like, yeah, hello, that's Stewart Copeland. Like switching, for instance, the bass drum to the 2 and the 4, and having that shift every once in a while going into a chorus where you're expecting it to be, the bass drum to hit every, on the one and, on every beat or something. And it said, oh, we're gonna shift it, so you get that skip of a beat. That's Stewart Copeland.
It's the year 2020. Skye, you're homeschooled. What you mentioned now is work is kind of slowing down. Instead of, baking banana bread and like maybe cutting your own hair or whatever, like, hey, let's form this band. So in a way, while the pandemic was horrible for people, this was kind of like a blessing for you two.
For sure. I mean, it was I honestly think it was without COVID, without that opportunity, I'm not sure if we would have done it. It would have been different and maybe it would have probably taken longer, but it just handed us this opportunity. And um I mean, and also just it gave us something to actually respond to as well. Like I mentioned before with the lyrics and whatnot, it was um it was easy to get inspired to actually, now that you mentioned the escapism part of it kind of comes in there too, right? Because it was an escape for us to um focus on this and just not really get too kind of carried away with what was happening outside of the studio. I mean, we had our little family bubble, and this provided Skye and I this awesome little spaceship to step into and have fun all day long and learn and try to do the best record we could. And just as a lyricist, like I said before, it just gave me all this stuff to write about. And I don't know, we kind of looked at each other one day and we're like, you know what, we've got these songs, we've got like this time, let's do an album, let's just do this.
In that same statement that I got from your press release, yeah, you mentioned how it was a golden opportunity. We're like, let's take advantage of it because we don't know how long this was gonna last. And that was my question, was like the longevity of this project. Do you see it, going more forward, or you're just kind of taking it step by step?
I'm in some ways leaving this in his hands. We have songs, we have more songs that we'll do. But I know like that, then I have to put my dad hat back on because he's 14 and he's got a 14-year-old life to live. And we're doing some shows, we're getting out there a little bit, we're putting out the record, we're pressing vinyl, we're doing all this fun stuff. But honestly, if we had to close the book after that, I'd be 100% fine with it. We've already have this amazing thing. But that's why, like, if he wants to keep doing this and we find ourselves this summer like churning away on a new album, and I think we have the song. I mean, we have the we do have some songs. We also have some ideas of where to go with it, I think. But I am kind of like, I'm going to read the room. And if he wants to do it, then we'll do it.
When do you decide, okay, let me put the dad hat on. Okay, now let me take it off and work with each other as a bandmate?
It's super tricky and weird. Honestly, like I've never been in a band like this. I'm just going to say that. It's a different beast. It's really tricky. I don't know. I have to, the dad hat comes on first. I mean, that's really, I'm just, everything else kind of like, whatever. The priorities are clearly like, I'm not going to not have that hat on, I guess I should say. But the bandmate hat is one where, if we're like rehearsing, for instance, or we're getting ready for the show, I might have that hat on and I might be a little more like what a bandmate would say, right? I mean, we might go back and forth about what we think about, a part being what it is, or how maybe we're not playing something as well as we should, or maybe he's got some ideas for how I should play or whatever. And, sometimes, or even just like the expectations of being in a band, like those are, it's almost like you have a little business together or something, like it is a different mentality and a different I don't know, it's just a different perspective or whatever. And so I do feel like, yeah, there's kind of an energy, I guess, that we get into when we're in the practice space, which is like, yeah, it's a little different. It's kind of like being on the baseball field or something. If I'm the dad coach or whatever, I'm not like, I'm different. I'm different out there. I'm different with all the, I've got a whole team here that I'm trying to lead, and my son happens to be on the team. But if he drops the ball, I'm still going to be like, yo, you gotta, don't do that because we're a team and we're trying to win games. So
Yeah, and then you're just yelling at the referee.
yeah, so yeah, it actually is very similar to that. I've never used that analogy before, but I feel like that is kind of what it's like. You're putting on the coach hat, and of course you're still the dad, but it's just a slight twist. But the good news is that I rarely have to like be that guy. I mean, he shows up and he is like a great musician. So I don't know. I mean, it just, like I said, I don't think I'd be doing it unless it was what it is, and that is that it's a band, and musicians show up if they want to be in the band. They show up ready and they want to play. Otherwise, you kick them out of the band, right? Because you gotta show up. You gotta like want to do this thing, and not only does he obviously show up, but like we have a couple bandmates that we found that are awesome. And it's just been really easy, and found a bass player who showed up already knowing all the songs, ready to go, like who was
That is a good way to impress.
yeah, right. And he was friends. This is a crazy story. He was friends with I had a buddy help us mix the album. It's really nice to have fresh ears to help you finish an album, right? And my friend Dan Long down in LA, who happens to mix all the film school records, he offered to help us finish this one. And so he came on, mixed the album, and kind of like, I don't know, told some people about it, I guess, whatever. And it happened to reach the fellow that would become our bass player, David. It happened to because he knew Dan, the music, he already knew the music before he even knew a 14-year-old was in the band, which is pretty amazing. Because instead of it being me out there being like, okay, I've got a band with my son, I'm looking for a bass player. It was like, he just happened to hear the songs and wanted to know what was going on with the band. So, I mean, it was like the best case scenario, to find someone who really just liked the music. And like I said, he's such a good player, and he just showed up and he already knew all the songs and everything. So I'm like, you're hired, dude.
Well, that's what drew me to Nyte, Skye, was because, yeah, I read the press release about father and son project. I'm like, oh, that's really cute. And then I listened to it like, whoa, this is very sophisticated. And again, for your age, being 14 and being to play the drums like that is just like super stellar. And how do you balance your school and your personal life, Skye, and the band?
Well, like when we were writing it, I like didn't have to deal with anything. Like I basically just roamed free for 2 years, like with like the occasional weekly like online school day, but that was barely like, I don't know. It's like it wasn't even there. I just forgot everything after it happened pretty much. And so I don't know. We just worked on it for a while, and now like I get like, I'd say about every 2 or 3 months I have like a 1 or 2 week break, and then we can just plan all the shows and the tours around that.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point. So the band is kind of hemmed in, right, by his school schedule now, and like just life in general. So, like these shows, for instance, this happens to be when he's got the week off. So I was able to do noise pop. I was able to do, we went down to San Diego, we did LA. So we have to fit it right now, and now we're going to take another huge break until the summer. And then when he's again free, we'll do another, string of shows or whatever. But it's hemmed in by life, and that's great. That's fine. That's what it is, in some ways that kind of focuses our energies. So, I mean, yeah, it's part of just, I think having a 14-year-old in your band, like,
Yeah. See, Skye, they're being flexible on your schedule. They're bending down for you.
exactly.
And I work at a news station in San Francisco, and so I just found out that a mother and daughter journalists are now working together in the same news station. And I'm like, oh gosh, if my mom and I worked in the same building, she'd be constantly supervising me, like texting me, do you want food? Do you want company? Like, mom, I'm working.
Yeah. I know.
So
I still ask Skye if he wants to eat every 5 seconds. I'll bring the chips and guacamole to band practice, and if I really want to, make him happy, I'll show up with donuts or a couple Dr. Peppers or something.
Right? Yeah, those are the perks of being in the band.
Yeah.
So speaking of news, we've been lately talking about this AI software called Chat GPT. I'm not sure if you guys heard of it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's super smart where it could write essays and poems, even your homework. I'm sure Skye's like, what? Yeah. I wish that existed when I was in school. But anyway, there's in talks that Chat GPT could write lyrics, could write songs. As creators yourself, as artists, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I've been talking to a lot of musicians about this in the last month. Um, and also like coming to it as a composer where I'm already in lots of ways dealing with this. Like there's a lot of commercial music right now that is not like really written by the composer. It's like just thrown together. It's like loops that are thrown together, pre-recorded stuff. It's not, it doesn't even take AI to do this kind of stuff. People are already doing it. You can buy stems for any style of music right now and put together songs, in 5 minutes. So of course AI is going to be able to write songs. Of course, like, the lyrical stuff is crazy. I will give you that. But I think when it comes to actually songwriting, I think the elephant or whatever, the obvious thing is that a computer's not going to pick up a guitar. So yes, of course it can find loops and probably make something sound. It can take elements of what's out there already and maybe mold it and maybe come up with something that might sound like it played an acoustic guitar, let's say, for instance, or a beat, for instance. But I just still feel like the act of picking up an instrument, like a guitar or a drum or rapping or any of a stylistic way of rapping, for instance, a computer's not gonna. I mean, I don't know, like maybe they could fake it, but I just feel like there's still going to be this folk art that it's going to be out there that's going to be pretty darn hard to imitate, and because it's human. And I'm hopeful. I don't know. I kind of feel like there might even be, okay, for instance, so right now, like in commercial music, right? There's a little bit of a backlash of, okay, no, we don't want something that sounds like the cheesy library track. We actually want something that sounds like a human being again. Like we want the acoustic guitar, we want the scratches, we want the voice that isn't perfect. That's already happening, like as a trend, because it's already a backlash to this thing that's been happening for the last like 5 years with commercial music. So I don't know. I can't help but think like there's going to be a backlash here. Like there's going to be a return to, someone picking up a guitar and just singing poetry into a mic and all the imperfections and yeah, sure, if AI can imitate that, then maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. I'm hopeful that this will actually spur like a folk movement again, away from computers, and back into something more human.
Yeah, I just thought it was really fascinating because again, like I said, like people were thinking about using ChatGPT one way and now it's like, oh, this is actually swaying in a music direction. And I'm like, I was worrying for like the songwriters who may lose jobs because a robot could take their place, or there's no heart, there's no human touch to the writing component and stuff like that. So we'll see where this goes. I think a lot of music producers are pushing this. Yeah, as I mentioned, I do work for a news station and I'm the teleprompter person. So if you guys could create your own maybe fake news headline, what would it be?
Nyte Skye just broke all Spotify streaming records. And father and son duo sets new streaming records on Spotify,
I
selling
love
out
it.
selling out stadiums.
I'll put that in the script.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. So anything else you would like to add to say about Nyte Skye and your upcoming performances?
The vinyl isn't out yet. I don't know if this is a little detailed, but the vinyl comes out in late March, like about a month from now. So you can pre-order it, you know, but we were hoping to have vinyl in hand for this show tomorrow, which unfortunately we don't. But that'll be on, you know, that's the coming out next month. After that, we have like a couple of singles coming out into the summer, and then assuming everything continues as it's going, we'll be working on another album, you know, this summer, and hopefully have something by, you know, judging on everything here, like hopefully have something in the fall, or maybe about a year from now, maybe to have another album. So I don't know. I think
Yeah,
that's what,
his freshman and sophomore year is going to be really easy. By junior and senior year, depending if he decides to take AP classes, that's a whole other story.
right. Yeah, we've got a little window in here still.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much, Niles and Skye, for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks.
for having us.